New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has confirmed that 49 people were indeed killed in attacks that took place on two mosques yesterday. 41 people died at the Al Noor Mosque and 7 at the Linwood Avenue Mosque. And one person is reported to have died since in hospital, while over 40 people are being treated for injuries at the Christchurch Hospital, including a 5-year-old child. Now, 3 people have been arrested in relation to the event, and one Australian citizen has appeared in court today who's now been denied bail. The Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has assured that the country's gun laws will change. The US President Donald Trump has said that he does not see the rise of white nationalism to be a growing problem in the world, but it might be an issue in New Zealand. Trump has announced that he had spoken with New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern about the horrific massacre of the Muslim worshippers in the mosques and is prepared to give any assistance that New Zealand might require. Mosques around the United States have increased their security measures for prayers after the New Zealand massacre. Officers from the New York City Police Department have carried long guns and also heavy weapons as they guarded the mosques across the city. Now, according to the police, the increased patrols were meant as a precaution. No specific threats have been made to any mosque in New York. And outside a mosque in Upper Manhattan, flowers were sent as condolences from a nearby synagogue. The United Nations Security Council has observed a moment of silence on Friday as a tribute to the victims of the attacks on the 2 New Zealand mosques. Leaders from around the world have expressed disgust and shock and sorrow at the killing of the 49 people which took place in New Zealand on Friday, with some saying that the demonization of Muslims, in fact, has fueled the attacks. And also hundreds of people gathered to pray for the victims of the Christchurch terror attack at Sydney's Lakemba Mosque. There was a strong police presence at the vigil, ahead of which the Lebanese Muslim Association President Samir Dandan said that there were concerns about mosques in Australia could be targeted. The Australian Federation of the Islamic Councils have urged the governments in Australia at all levels to pay extra attention to anti-Muslim sentiment and extremism and also white supremacist individuals. And Jordanians gathered outside of New Zealand's consulate in Amman to express their support for the victims of the attack in New Zealand mosques. The Jordan's foreign ministry has confirmed that 2 Jordanians were amongst those who were killed in the terror attack. The Jordan's King Abdullah II has also tweeted that the heinous massacre against the Muslims praying in peace in New Zealand is an appalling terror crime and has also mentioned that terrorism has no religion. The United Nations also held an interagency ceremony in the memory of the 21 staff members who were killed in the Ethiopian Airlines crash. A minute of silence was held for the employees, many of whom were on their way to a major environmental summit in Nairobi. An investigation into the crash is presently underway with the help of the French air accident investigators. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane crashed soon after having taken off from Addis Ababa, killing all 157 people who were on board. And after a crippling blackout across Venezuela, the markets finally reopened as electricity stabilized in the OPEC nation, but uncertainty over the future still hangs heavy for many citizens awaiting the next crisis. The fruit and vegetable markets have, of course, become a bit of a respite for those who are unable to secure goods at supermarkets due to widespread shortages. The blackout that began about a week ago left hospitals struggling to keep equipment running, and food had rotted in the tropical heat. The demonstrators marched through the Algerian capital for a 4th consecutive Friday to set up demands for President Bouteflika's ouster. Friday's rally is in fact the first major test of whether Bouteflika has claimed public anger with his announcement that he would not seek the fifth term. The South Korean President Moon Jae-in met with the Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. The two leaders also discussed ways to enhance bilateral ties and cooperation. Cambodia is Moon's final stop in a three-day visit to the ASEAN countries that also included Brunei and Malaysia. After meeting with the Irish Foreign Minister, the French Minister for Europe has confirmed that Britain's exit from the European Union will not be renegotiated. Many European Union leaders want a clear idea of how Britain will use any extension to the Brexit process before granting a delay. The British lawmakers voted overwhelmingly to seek to delay Britain's March 29 exit from the European Union. The Brussels summit next week is in fact being seen as the last chance for Prime Minister Theresa May to secure unanimous approval from other 27 European Union members for any Brexit delay. India's Election Commission has said that vehicles carrying EVMs and VVPATs during the 7-phase general elections will be equipped with GPS trackers to trace their movement. The poll body has also issued instructions to all state electoral officers to monitor end-to-end movement of all reserved EVMs and paper trail machines. The Election Commission will also set up more than 10 lakh polling stations in the country for the 2019 general elections. The Bharatiya Janata Party and also the Shiv Sena will kickstart their joint election campaigning from the 24th of March with a rally in the Maharashtrian city of Kolhapur. The two parties are also holding a joint meeting that is to be attended by Union Minister Nitin Gadkari, Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis and Shiv Sena Supremo Uddhav Thackeray. A powerful bomb cyclone that slammed Colorado with snow and hurricane-force winds is now threatening towns in central United States. About 13 tornadoes were reported in Kentucky, Indiana and Michigan. Flood warnings and watches remained in effect of Nebraska, Iowa and Michigan. In McCracken County, a tornado also damaged the roof of a preschool with 40 children and 10 staff inside, but no one was injured. And evacuations also took place in other eastern Nebraska communities. A bomb cyclone is when pressure drops at least by about 24 millibars within a 24-hour period. A powerful tropical storm made its landfall in Mozambique, battering a coastal city with heavy rains and winds. Now, in the northern Zambezi province, villages along the coastline were cut off from the mainland by the storm surge. The cyclone Idai dumped more water and brought destruction on areas where scores of people have already been killed and tens of thousands are being displaced by floods over the past week. The storm was also expected to hit parts of neighboring Malawi. The heavy rains have lashed Peru, unleashing a landslide and also turning residential streets into rushing rivers. The northern city of Trujillo has, of course, raised a state of alert after floodwaters gushed through the streets, heading into homes and damaging property. A landslide has also blocked access to several roads and highways. No deaths or injuries have been reported so far, but authorities are cautioning residents to stay off the roads. The students in the Indian capital of New Delhi participated in the International Day of Action by missing classes and also coming out onto the streets in their thousands from their schools. And of course, students from across the globe participated in the International Day of Action led by teenage Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg. The Thunberg, who has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, has promised that school strikes will go on until politicians take firm action against climate change. Some 10,000 protesters gathered in Berlin to march against climate change. The students also waved signs with slogans such as "There is no Planet B" and "Climate Protection Report Card F" before a march through the capital's government quarter. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and also French President Emmanuel Macron have publicly welcomed the student protests, even as their policies have been criticized as too limited by environmental activists.
Großartig, was überall auf der Welt passiert, zusammengekommen. Und ich freue mich wahnsinnig, dass ihr alle hier seid.
And also young climate activists rounded off demonstrations in central Paris near the Eiffel Tower, demanding for some decisive action by the governments to tackle global warming. According to police, as many as about 29,000 people turned up in Paris to participate in the worldwide strike by college and high school students. The protests have mobilized tens of thousands, with major events from Sydney to London and others that have been planned in the United States as well later on in the day. And hundreds of youngsters skipped school to rally in Washington as part of the International Youth Climate Strike. Some 1,500 students joined the event in front of the Capitol building, chanting "Climate Action Now." While similar rallies were also held across 46 states, school students staged a die-in outside of the United Nations in New York. The protesters carried colorful homemade placards bearing slogans such as "Change the President, not the climate," and "You are sealing our future." And NASA's astronauts Nick Hague and Christina Hammer-Koch, along with Roscosmos' Alexei Ovchinin, arrived on board the International Space Station. The three-member crew had blasted off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on a Russian-made Soyuz rocket on the 13th of March, and the rocket docked onto the International Space Station the next day. Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin were originally meant to get on board the ISS in October last year. However, their mission was aborted due to a damaged sensor during the rocket's assembly at the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Now, despite production being more than 2 million tons of cocoa beans every year, not much finished chocolate is being produced in Ivory Coast. Now, amongst the limited finished chocolate producers in the country, the local chocolatiers come up with innovative techniques to make organic finished chocolate. An entrepreneur uses a bicycle to produce organic chocolate in an eco-friendly way, and his single organic chocolate bar sells for around $2.60, which is about 1,500 CFA francs, which is simply out of reach for most local consumers.